Welcome in. Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, OTAs in the books for your Seattle Seahawks. And we look back with the final report on winners and losers for your Seattle Seahawks in OTAs. We'll tell you who those guys are and more coming up in just a matter of moments. Before we do, folks, got to make sure you subscribe to the channel as we are charging on to 38.5 thousand subscribers here on the channel. We're about 286 away from reaching that milestone, but we need your help to get there. Here on Seahawks Today, we're bringing you daily news and rumors. We got live shows and watch parties as well, and when news breaks, we take the time to bring you a video as quickly as we can. Subscribe now for free. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV. So over OTAs and minicamp, we've been bringing you these videos with updates and analysis of what's gone on throughout this time period. So on today's show, I'm going to give you my final list of the winners and losers and show you what people are saying around the organization as well as some of the media members covering the Seahawks about our winners and losers on today's show. Let's start off with Mike Jackson. Pete Carroll called him the MVP of minicamp. He was fantastic. And we know about the pressure on Mike Jackson with Devon Witherspoon expected to step into that starting outside corner role alongside Tariq Woolen. Where does that leave Mike Jackson? Well, he's going to get playing time somewhere on this Seahawks team. Pete Carroll had this to say about Mike Jackson. Mike challenged whenever he could all of the techniques, all the stuff we asked him to do, playing on both sides. He played some inside stuff too, but his confidence is really at an all-time high for him. And I know that when he saw Tariq go down, it was important for him to step up so that we felt secure, we'd be okay, we could carry on. And with that, the backstory on Mike Jackson. Joined the Seahawks in 2021. And he's played for a few different teams, the Patriots, the Lions, and the Cowboys. Last season, he was pretty reliable. Started all 17 games at outside corner for the Seahawks. So whether he starts or not at outside corner, you can respect Mike Jackson. You know that he's going to make an impact on this Seahawks team, whatever role that he's in. I think that the Seahawks are going to be pretty excited to have him on board, especially with what he's done with another impressive offseason once again. Our pinned comment today, name a winner from Seahawks OTAs. Whether it was Mike Jackson or somebody else that we're going to talk about in today's show. Give me one name that comes to mind of a winner for your Seattle Seahawks in OTAs, and let me know what you think. Next up, after Mike Jackson, we go to the offensive side of the ball. That's where we find quarterback Geno Smith. Geno, for the very first time in his NFL career, enters an offseason where he knows he's going to be the starting quarterback. And he's coming off the best season of his NFL career. And according to reports, everything that we've heard, Geno not only looks the part, but he's also putting in the work that needs to be done to be a quarterback playing at a high level here this upcoming season in 2023. Former Seahawks quarterback, Fox Sports college football analyst, and Seattle Sports 710 radio host Brock Heward had this to say about Geno Smith. Geno Smith's transformation in body, mind, spirit, soul, all of it. And then throw in these rookies. It's pretty remarkable. It's not a rebuild, and it's not even a pivot. It's a transformation starting with Geno. I mean, I told you this last week, and looking at some years ago, I'm like, gosh, does this guy even lift in the offseason? Like, he just looks bad. He looks like a 40-year-old man out there, and now, holy smokes, he has added some lean muscle mass, which takes work at 30-something years of age. You have to be committed to it. I think you throw in these two classes, last year's class and this year's class, and that place has largely transformed in just a couple of years. And Geno Smith is a big reason why we've seen this transformation project in Seattle. Not only the play on the field of being a Pro Bowler and being a comeback player of the year last year, but the leadership skills as well. He's done the little things and done all of that right this offseason from everything we've heard. Coming off a year where he had a completion percentage near 70%, close to 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 picks. We shall see what Geno Smith does for an encore this year, but all signs point to that Geno Smith should be that dude in 2023. Staying on the offensive side of the ball after Geno Smith, we turn to a rookie. That's Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the Seahawks' number 20 overall pick out of the Ohio State. He's expected to slide into the number 3 receiver role, and he has looked the part, to say the least, from everything we've heard at this point in time, and that he's going to be ready to go. Despite the hamstring injury that forced him to miss most of last year at Ohio State, a lot of excitement about JSN, what he'll bring to the table in year 1 in Seattle. Pete Carroll on Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Oh, man, he's really, really natural. He's really a natural athlete, gifted in his timing, in and out of breaks and things, and his feels. He also has, which we saw this in the workout at school, he's got great change of direction in him, and he's got this marvelous ability to get in and out of his turns. JSN, the number 20 overall pick, as we mentioned, Mel Kiper Jr. Had him as the number 2 wide receiver and the number 14 overall player on his big board. So the Seahawks found some good value with JSN with that number 20 overall pick. Back in 2021, he was a third-team All-American selection, and I got to tell you, his best football, I think, is still ahead of him, and he was in a crowded receiver room there at Ohio State alongside Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and yet he still was incredible and put up over 1,600 yards passing his last full season there at Ohio State when he was fully healthy in 2021. From one rookie to another, we find the number 5 overall pick in this year's draft, Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois. And Devon Witherspoon is going to be something spectacular. And although there's been the injuries that limited him at times throughout the offseason workouts, he is still dramatically impressed and is expected to be an instant impact player. We saw him line up in the slot at times throughout OTAs. And either way, no matter where you put him, he looked good, and it caught the attention of his offensive teammate, Tyler Lockett, on that side of the ball, saying this: I love him. I love the way that he plays. Obviously, he hasn't been able to go out there and actually go with the team, but just being able to see how he plays when we're out there doing a little faster walkthrough, when I'm watching him out there, there's he's kind of like doing his little movements. You can tell he knows the game. You can tell he knows when to sit, when not to sit, when to jump, when to play it safe. And the more and more he understands the plays, he can understand the freedom that he has to be able to know when to do certain things. Devon Witherspoon, we mentioned the number 5 overall pick. Mel Kiper had him as the number 1 corner in this year's draft and the number 8 overall player. He was a consensus All-American in 2022 on that Illinois defense. And watch out, he is going to be something special for this Seahawks team and part of arguably the best secondary in the entire NFL. Who will be the best rookie for the Seahawks this year? Is it Witherspoon? Is it Smith-Njigba? Is it somebody else? Weigh in the comment section. Tell me who you believe will be the Seahawks' best rookie this upcoming season. Last one on our OTA winners is the old veteran. Bobby Wagner is back in Seattle. And the young guys that may have not been familiar with Bobby Wagner, it's been fascinating to hear all of them giving their respects to Bobby, and that he's earned the respect pretty quickly in that Seattle defense and among those younger players. They love Bobby Wagner. He's already adapting to that culture already there, and it's been pretty fantastic to see what he brings to the table in that regard. He's also taking back the signal calling on defense. He is going to be the leader of this group once again, and he's coming off a great year with the Los Angeles Rams too. Even as he's in his 30s, the expectation should still be that Bobby Wagner plays an extremely high level, and he's shown that so far throughout OTAs. Here's Bobby Wagner on his return to the Seahawks. Feels good to be back. Nice to be back in 54. Remember, he was wearing 45 with the Rams. Nice to be back in some beautiful weather. It's cool. Did some different things to get in better shape and just trying to continue to play at a high level and try to perform and show people that it can be done. Wagner returned on a one-year, $7 million deal with a career in Seattle that stretched all the way back to 2012. And not only won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, but also was a six-time first-team All-Pro selection in 2014. Then from 2016 to 2020, a future Hall of Famer, and you would hope that he gets to finish his career in Seattle, that he begins this next chapter on a high note here with the Seattle Seahawks. Now to the losers list. Let's start out with the first name. That would be Drew Lock. And I know that the Seahawks were very happy to bring Drew Lock back to this Seahawks team here in 2023 to be the backup after they didn't draft a quarterback. Drew Lock we didn't see at all last season as Geno Smith played every single snap. But learning the system, already being a year under it, I think the expectation was that Drew Lock would be further along in case something were to happen to Geno Smith, that Drew Lock would be ready to go. But according to reports, Drew Lock hasn't looked that great at this point, at least through offseason activities. Here's more from Mike Salk of Seattle Sports 710. I was more struck by how the pace of the offense dropped off as soon as he took over. He simply did not have the same command nor presence that Geno displayed. And ultimately, that mirrors what we saw last year at this time. If Lock wants to show that he is an NFL starter, I would think that path involves cleaning up both issues. Throw fewer picks and develop the command and leadership the position demands. So I'll say this. Is that a little harsh? Yes, but it's a reality that Drew Lock faces at this point in time. Next on the list is Jordyn Brooks, linebacker for Seattle, still recovering from the ACL injury. And what we heard from Jordyn Brooks from the Seahawks coaching staff was that they don't have a timetable for his return. They hope that he's back in time for training camp, but they really just don't know. And we already know that he's not going to be the signal caller, that he's handing those duties back to Bobby Wagner, that this defense is going to be Bobby Wagner's once again to patrol. And not to mention, he didn't get the fifth-year option that he wanted either. So it hasn't been a good offseason for Jordyn Brooks, and he enters 2023 with a huge chip on his shoulder with something to prove as he returns from this injury. The Seahawks have said they want to keep him around, but obviously got to see more as far as that goes. One more loser to get to here in just a second, but first, name a loser from Seahawks OTAs. We mentioned a couple names. There's some others out there that could come to mind. Give me a loser that you think is a good fit for what we're talking about here for your Seattle Seahawks. Give me one more loser before I give you one more loser in just one moment here on Seahawks Today. Last one on our losers list after Drew Lock and Jordyn Brooks is Evan Brown. Evan Brown was expected to step in and be the starting center for your Seattle Seahawks here in 2023. They signed him from the Detroit Lions, but we've heard some interesting developments as OTAs has gone on. Signed with the Seahawks back on April 3rd, and the belief would be that he would be replacing Austin Blythe as the starting center. Pro Football Focus recently said that the numbers, the way it shakes out, comparing him to Blythe is a major concern, that it is a significant downgrade for Seattle to be going from Brown to Blythe. And on top of that, in practices, he has been pushed very hard by the outstanding rookie from Michigan, who we call Olu, for that starting role. So Evan Brown, he'll make the roster. That's not the concern. But the expectation was that he would be the starting center. He might not even have that role. And if he does, then there's some doubts about what exactly he brings to the table. So that's not great for Evan Brown as far as that goes. To recap, before we wrap up today's show, our winners from OTAs include Mike Jackson, Geno Smith, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Devon Witherspoon, and Bobby Wagner. Your losers for OTAs include Drew Lock, Jordyn Brooks, and Evan Brown. Before we wrap up today, what's your biggest takeaway from Seahawks OTAs so far to this point of what we've told you from how OTAs went for the Seahawks? What's your biggest takeaway or something you learned when looking at this Seahawks team? Tell me what you think in the comments section, what your biggest takeaway is. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there talking about your Seattle Seahawks, and I'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.